She had always imagined her life unfolding like the pages of a carefully written novel, one where love, happiness, and security formed the foundation of every chapter. But as the sun rose on the day she had been preparing for months, that vision crumbled before her eyes. She woke with a sense of excitement and nervous anticipation, ready to take a step she had always believed would define her future. Her home was filled with soft light, the aroma of fresh flowers and the quiet hum of her family moving about, all working diligently to make this day perfect. She had rehearsed every moment, from the walk down the aisle to the exchange of vows, and even the first smile she would give her fiancé as he awaited her at the altar. But none of it mattered anymore. The phone call came early in the morning. She answered with a trembling voice, expecting the usual morning greeting. But instead she was met with silence at first, then the words that shattered her world. Her fiancé had called to say he could not go through with the marriage. His voice, once full of warmth, now sounded cold and distant. She tried to reason with him, to find out what had changed, but there were no answers, only excuses, vague and insufficient, leaving her with a hollow feeling she could not shake. Her hands shook as she dropped the phone, unable to comprehend that the life she had meticulously planned had been pulled from under her. The hours that followed were a blur. Her family rushed to comfort her, but their worry could not shield her from the sting of embarrassment and the overwhelming sense of loss. She could still hear the whispers of neighbors, the faint echo of conversations that she imagined were full of pity and judgment. She felt exposed, as though the walls of her carefully constructed world had been torn down and she was standing bare in the cold light of reality. Her dreams, once so tangible, seemed now like fragile paper in the wind. Her friends tried to reach out, some offering consolation, others awkwardly unsure of what to say. Every message felt hollow, every word inadequate. She wanted to disappear, to retreat from a world that suddenly seemed cruel and unfair. The laughter and chatter of the city outside her window seemed distant, almost mocking, as if life had moved on without her permission. She wandered through her home, touching objects that reminded her of the plans that would never come to be. The wedding dress she had chosen with such care, the invitations that had already been sent, the notes filled with her hopes and dreams, all of it now a testament to a future that would never exist. Her family tried to guide her through the day, encouraging her to eat, to rest, to hold on to some semblance of normalcy. But the act of moving through the motions felt like walking through a fog, every step heavy with grief and disbelief. She could not bring herself to answer the calls of well-meaning relatives or friends, each one a reminder that the world expected her to recover, to smile, to pretend that everything was fine. Yet inside she felt hollow, as though the very center of her being had been ripped away, leaving a void that could not be filled. In the midst of this chaos, she found herself reflecting on the life she had known before the engagement, the simple joys that had always given her comfort. She remembered the quiet mornings spent reading in her room, the walks through the park where she had felt at peace, the small acts of kindness that had always lifted her spirits. Those memories now felt like a lifeline, a reminder that she had once been whole, that she could be again. But the shadow of rejection loomed large, threatening to engulf every glimmer of hope. The community's reaction added to her burden. Some offered sympathy, their eyes filled with pity that she could not bear to meet. Others whispered behind her back, their words sharp and cutting, a reminder of how quickly admiration could turn to judgment. She walked through the streets feeling their gaze, imagining the stories they told themselves about her. Each step felt heavier than the last, the weight of expectation and humiliation pressing down on her until she could barely breathe. As the day wore on, she found herself alone in the quiet of her room, seeking solace in the familiar surroundings that now seemed foreign and unwelcoming. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, barely recognizing the person looking back. The vibrant, hopeful young woman she had been seemed to have vanished, replaced by someone fragile, broken, and uncertain. Tears flowed freely, each one a release of the pain she had carried silently for hours. The world outside continued its rhythm, indifferent to her suffering, while she grappled with a reality she had never imagined facing. In the solitude of that evening, she made an effort to understand her emotions, to name the feelings that churned within her. Anger, sadness, betrayal, and confusion collided in a storm that left her exhausted. She questioned herself, wondering if she had missed signs, if she had somehow contributed to this heartbreak. Yet deep down, She knew that some things were beyond her control, that the choices of others could not always be anticipated or understood. She clung to that thought, however fragile, as a thread of reason in a day filled with chaos. As night fell, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of a life that had been upended. Sleep eluded her, her mind racing with memories of what had been and fantasies of what might have been. Each imagined scenario ended the same way, with loss, rejection, and the sting of disappointment. She felt the full weight of loneliness and emptiness that no comforting words or gestures could fill. Yet beneath the despair there was a faint, stubborn flicker of resilience. She did not yet know how, but she sensed that she would rise again, that the person she had been before could still exist within her, waiting for a chance to emerge. The following days were a mixture of sorrow and tentative steps toward recovery. She avoided public gatherings, seeking refuge in quiet spaces where she could think without interruption. She spent hours walking alone, letting the cityscape absorb her grief while giving her the space to breathe. The familiar streets, once mundane, now seemed filled with stories of resilience and survival, reminders that life continued despite heartbreak. She observed people laughing, helping each other, moving forward, and in their actions she found inspiration, a subtle encouragement that she too could find her way again. Her family remained close, offering support without pressure. They listened to her ramblings, allowed her tears, and provided practical help with daily tasks that had become burdensome. Their presence was a reminder that she was not entirely alone, that connections of love and care existed even when the world seemed cruel. Slowly, the first seeds of acceptance took root, not as a solution but as a beginning, a recognition that while her engagement was gone, her life was not. During this period, she began to reflect on what she truly wanted, independent of societal expectations or past plans. She thought about her values, her desires, and the qualities she hoped to find in a life partner. The clarity was painful yet liberating, a bittersweet reminder that the end of one chapter could eventually make way for another. She began to envision a future not dictated by someone else's whims, but shaped by her own choices and guided by her own heart. The community's whispers continued, but their impact lessened over time. She realized that judgment could not define her worth, that the opinions of others were fleeting shadows compared to the substance of her own life. Each day she grew a little stronger, a little more certain that she could navigate the complexities of her world without being diminished by rejection. She practiced small acts of self-care, simple routines that reestablished a sense of control and dignity. By the end of the week, she could walk through her home without feeling the constant ache of loss. She could look at her reflection without flinching, even managing a faint, tentative smile. The journey toward healing was just beginning, but she had taken the first crucial step, acknowledging her pain while refusing to be defined by it. She had survived the initial shock, and in that survival, she discovered a quiet strength she had not realized she possessed. Though the memory of her canceled engagement lingered, it no longer consumed her every thought. She began to notice the small beauties in life once more. The laughter of children playing outside, the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind, the comforting aroma of home-cooked meals. These simple joys became reminders that life was not over, that the end of one dream did not signify the end of all hope. She started to believe, cautiously but genuinely, that happiness could still find her even if it came in forms she had never anticipated. And so, with a mixture of sorrow and resilience, she faced the days ahead. She knew the journey would be long, filled with unexpected challenges and moments of doubt. But she also knew she had survived the first, most painful blow. The world was still waiting, full of unknown possibilities, and somewhere in that uncertainty lay the chance for healing, love, and a future shaped not by circumstance, but by the courage and determination she was beginning to rediscover within herself. She began taking longer walks through the city, partly to clear her mind and partly to escape the suffocating confines of her home. The streets, once overwhelming with the noise of passing cars and chattering crowds, gradually started to feel familiar again. There was a strange comfort in the ordinary bustle, a reminder that life continued despite the sharp rupture in her own world. It was on one of these walks that she first noticed him. He was attending to a street vendor, lifting baskets and arranging goods with careful attention. His clothes were simple, modest, and showed signs of wear, but there was a quiet strength in the way he moved. When she accidentally stumbled into a crate of fruit, he immediately steadied it and offered a small, reassuring smile. His voice was calm and warm, completely absent of judgment, and for a brief moment she felt a flicker of safety. It was strange how a simple interaction with a stranger could feel like a balm on a heart raw with recent hurt. The encounter was brief, lasting only a few minutes, but it lingered in her mind. She found herself revisiting the memory of his calm demeanor, the way his hands moved with ease, and the genuine attention he gave to the people around him. There was nothing showy about him, no attempt to impress, no hint of arrogance. He simply existed with kindness, and that alone was captivating. Days passed, and she began to see him in other places, sometimes at the corner cafe, quietly sipping tea while reading, other times helping neighbors carry groceries or guiding a lost child back to their parents. Each small act revealed more about him, painting a picture of a man who lived his life with quiet generosity. She was drawn to his simplicity, to the ease and comfort that seemed to radiate from him. Their first proper conversation occurred by chance. He noticed her looking at a small bird trapped in a fence and approached to help it free. She had hesitated, unsure if she should intervene, but he offered a gentle reassurance, and together they freed the bird. That simple collaboration sparked the first real dialogue between them. He asked her name, and when she told him, he remembered it later when they crossed paths again, which she found remarkable. There was something about the way he listened, truly listened, that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt for months. Gradually, they began to talk more, sharing snippets of their lives. She found herself recounting memories and small details, the kind that she often kept tucked away. The heartbreak of her canceled engagement surfaced naturally, not as a forced confession but as part of the story of her life. He listened without interruption, his attention unwavering, his responses thoughtful. In his presence, she felt free to express pain and vulnerability without fear of judgment or pity. He never pried or asked for intimate details he did not need to know. His kindness felt effortless and genuine, a stark contrast to the polished, calculated politeness she had encountered before. It was refreshing, almost shocking, to be around someone whose gestures of care came without expectation or pretense. She began to anticipate their meetings, the brief moments of genuine connection that brightened the dullness of her days. Weeks passed, and their encounters became more frequent, evolving from casual greetings into planned walks and shared coffee breaks. She observed his consistent actions, helping a struggling shopkeeper, giving directions to a confused tourist, carrying bags for an elderly neighbor. Each act, though small and often unnoticed by others, spoke volumes about his character. She found herself admiring not just the actions but the intention behind them. He was not performing for anyone. His kindness was simply part of who he was. As their friendship developed, she began to notice subtle qualities that went deeper than outward behavior. He was patient, willing to listen without interruption, and never imposed his views or opinions. When they disagreed on minor things, his approach was gentle and respectful, never confrontational. She realized that she could be herself around him, unguarded and authentic, without worrying about criticism or rejection. One afternoon, as they sat on a park bench watching children play and pigeons flutter around, he spoke about a time he had traveled alone, exploring places few people visited. His voice was calm, reflective, and filled with quiet excitement as he recounted the simple joys of those journeys. The kindness of strangers, the beauty of sunsets in distant towns, the small victories and unexpected challenges. She listened intently, captivated not just by the stories but by the calm confidence he exuded while telling them. It was a confidence that came not from wealth or status but from self-assuredness and lived experience. She began to feel a shift within herself. Her days, once marked by sadness and isolation, now carried a sense of anticipation. She looked forward to their conversations, the shared walks, the gentle humor and insight he offered. Slowly, laughter returned to her life, tentative at first, then more freely. The darkness that had seemed inescapable after her broken engagement began to recede, replaced by a fragile but growing hope. Despite the comfort he brought, she remained cautious. She knew little about his life beyond what he shared, and there were moments of mystery that piqued her curiosity. He never spoke about money, his background, or any material success. He existed in the present, focused on people and experiences rather than possessions or status. She respected this, sensing that his world was rich in ways that could not be measured by conventional standards. Still, questions lingered in her mind, curiosity tempered by the growing trust she had in him. The bond between them deepened without pressure or expectation. They found joy in simple things, sharing meals from street vendors, watching sunsets over the river, or helping strangers in small, unnoticed ways. She began to appreciate the quiet moments, the ones without fanfare, the ones where connection and care existed simply because they could. It was a love of sorts, though unspoken, built on mutual respect, kindness, and the comfort of shared presence. One day, as they walked past a construction site, he stopped to help a man carrying a heavy load. Without hesitation, he lifted some of the weight, adjusted the load, and offered words of encouragement. She watched, admiration swelling within her. His strength was not just physical, but moral, a steady presence in a world that often demanded harshness. She realized that her attraction to him was deeper than curiosity or fleeting interest. It was rooted in recognition of his character, the way he treated others, and the quiet integrity that defined him. Their friendship became a refuge from the chaos of her life. She could share worries and fears without fear of judgment, laugh without self-consciousness, and simply exist without expectation. He too seemed to find solace in their time together, his eyes softening, his smiles more frequent, and his gestures gentler. It was a partnership of sorts, an unspoken agreement to support and nurture each other without the complications of societal pressures or preconceived notions. As weeks turned into months, she began to see a future where happiness was not dictated by grand gestures or societal validation, but by authenticity, empathy, and small, meaningful acts. She found herself thinking less about her past heartbreak and more about the possibilities that lay ahead. He had entered her life at a time when hope seemed distant, and in his quiet, steadfast way, he had begun to heal the cracks left by her broken engagement. One evening, after helping a neighbor with groceries and chatting with an elderly man about the neighborhood's history, they sat together on a bench under a street lamp. The soft glow illuminated their faces as they shared stories, laughed at small jokes, and reflected on the day. She realized how much he had grown in a short time, how her heart had begun to open again. His presence was no longer just comforting, it was transformative. He had shown her that trust, kindness, and connection could exist in their purest forms, untouched by expectation or pretense. She began to imagine a life where such qualities were central, where relationships were built on respect, understanding, and genuine care rather than status, appearance, or convenience. The broken engagement, while still a part of her story, no longer defined her. She had discovered a resilience she did not know she possessed, and the quiet companionship of a man whose actions spoke louder than words. The days continued in this rhythm, each encounter strengthening their bond. She noticed the way he treated strangers, always with consideration and patience, how he valued honesty and empathy over superficial measures of success. She felt drawn not only to his actions but to the philosophy that seemed to guide him, that a life well lived was measured by the impact one had on others and the integrity with which one moved through the world. Her laughter became more frequent, her steps lighter, and her perspective broader. She began to appreciate the nuances of daily life, from the smile of a child to the aroma of fresh bread from a nearby bakery. Each moment shared with him reinforced the understanding that life's beauty often lies in simplicity, in authenticity, and in the quiet acts of care that go unnoticed by most. Through him, she rediscovered her capacity to hope, to trust, and to find joy even after profound disappointment. In his presence, the shadow of the past grew dimmer. She could think of her canceled engagement without the same sharp pang of loss. She began to envision a life where connection and love were not bound by societal expectations or previous disappointments, but guided by mutual respect, compassion, and the shared experience of simply being there for one another. She had met him by chance, yet the impact he had on her life was profound and undeniable. His kindness, patience, and authenticity had become a lifeline, slowly mending the wounds of her heart and guiding her toward the possibility of something new, something real, and something deeply meaningful. She had begun to feel a fragile sense of happiness return, something she thought had been lost forever. The days were no longer heavy with the shadow of rejection, and the nights were no longer filled with endless replaying of past disappointments. Each encounter with him brought a sense of calm, a reassurance that kindness and genuine care were still possible in a world that often felt cold and indifferent. It was during one of these quiet evenings that she made a decision that would change the course of her life. The day had started like any other. She had walked through the neighborhood, greeting familiar faces and observing the small, ordinary events that had gradually become comforting. But when she returned home, her family was waiting, their expressions a mixture of concern, curiosity, and frustration. They spoke quickly, voices overlapping, urging her to consider her future, to think about stability, to make a choice that aligned with the expectations of their community. Their words, though well-meaning, felt heavy, pressing on her heart like a weight she could no longer bear. Frustrated and exhausted, she retreated to her room. She sat by the window, gazing out at the city that had always seemed alive yet distant. The warm glow of the evening sun reflected off the buildings, casting long shadows on the streets below. It was then that she remembered him, the man whose presence had become a source of comfort and stability in her life. She thought about his gentle smile, the way he listened without judgment, the quiet strength that seemed to surround him. In that moment, a thought crystallized in her mind. Perhaps he was the one she had been looking for all along. Impulsively, she decided to act on the feelings that had been growing quietly within her. Without consulting anyone, she reached out to him. Her heart pounded as she typed the message, unsure of how he would respond, yet certain that she could not wait any longer. She invited him to meet her that evening, at a small, quiet cafe they had both discovered during their walks. There was no elaborate plan, no grand declarations, just a desire to be close to him, to share a moment that might become the beginning of something more. When he arrived, she felt a rush of emotions: nervousness, excitement, anticipation, and a flicker of fear. He greeted her with the same calm warmth she had come to rely on, his presence instantly easing the tension that had built within her. They sat together, sipping tea, their conversation flowing naturally. She spoke of her thoughts, her fears, and the overwhelming pressure she had felt from her family. He listened attentively, nodding and offering gentle reassurances without ever attempting to control or direct her decisions. As the evening progressed, she found herself sharing more than she had intended, revealing the depth of her feelings for him and the admiration she held for his character. He remained patient, his gaze steady and kind, never rushing her or making her feel vulnerable for expressing her emotions. There was a comfort in his presence, a safety that encouraged honesty and openness. By the time the cafe began to empty, she knew that the bond between them had deepened in ways that words alone could not fully capture. Walking together through the quiet streets after their meeting, she felt a sense of clarity she had not experienced since the end of her engagement. The city lights reflected in the puddles from a recent rain, creating shimmering paths that seemed to mirror the possibilities opening before her. Without fully articulating it, she knew that her decision was not just about seeking comfort. It was about choosing someone whose character resonated with her values, someone who had shown her trust, kindness, and genuine care when she had needed it most. In the following days, she made preparations quietly and deliberately. She informed her family of her decision to marry him, anticipating surprise, confusion, and perhaps even disapproval. To her relief, her family, though initially shocked, began to understand the sincerity and thoughtfulness behind her choice. They saw how she had changed, how her demeanor had grown lighter, how hope and joy had returned to her life. While the transition was not without tension, the underlying love and concern her family held for her made the acceptance possible. As the day of the small, private ceremony approached, she found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. The pain of her canceled engagement, the months of solitude, the chance encounters, and the gradual development of trust had all converged to lead her to this moment. She realized that happiness had come in an unexpected form, quiet and unassuming yet profound in its impact. It was not the grand orchestrated romance she had imagined, but it was real, authentic, and entirely her own. The ceremony itself was modest, held in a small, familiar place where both families could gather without the weight of societal expectations pressing down on them. There was no elaborate decoration, no grandiose arrangements, just the simple presence of those who cared. As she exchanged vows with him, she felt a mixture of relief, joy, and anticipation for the future. His eyes reflected the same sincerity and calm strength that had drawn her to him from the very beginning. In that moment, she understood that love could exist without drama or spectacle, rooted instead in shared values, respect, and genuine care. In the weeks that followed, their life together settled into a rhythm both comforting and invigorating. They shared small routines, from morning walks to quiet evenings spent in conversation or reading side by side. She observed the ways he continued to interact with the world around them, his consistent kindness and generosity, reinforcing the admiration she felt for him. Each day brought new opportunities to witness the depth of his character, further solidifying the foundation of trust and mutual respect that underpinned their relationship. Her own growth became apparent in subtle ways. She approached challenges with greater confidence, handled disagreements with more patience, and found joy in the simple moments that had once gone unnoticed. The scars from her previous heartbreak remained, but they no longer dictated her emotions or decisions. Instead, they served as reminders of resilience, of the capacity to heal, and of the unexpected paths through which life can lead to fulfillment. As they navigated the early stages of married life, they faced ordinary challenges: financial planning, household responsibilities, and the adjustment of personal habits. Yet these challenges were met with collaboration, understanding, and humor. They discovered the importance of communication, compromise, and shared vision, all while maintaining the integrity and authenticity that had initially drawn them together. Each experience, whether mundane or significant, strengthened the bond they shared and reinforced the decision she had made in a moment of impulsive clarity. Over time, she also began to notice the quiet mysteries in his life, the subtle hints that there was more to him than met the eye. He never boasted or revealed much about his background, yet there was an air of confidence and knowledge that suggested experiences and resources beyond what he displayed. She sensed that he had chosen simplicity not out of necessity, but as a conscious decision, valuing authenticity over recognition. While curiosity arose, she respected his boundaries, understanding that the strength of their relationship lay not in the revelation of secrets, but in the trust and connection they had built. Friends and neighbors gradually became aware of their union, and many were surprised at her choice, given the sudden and impulsive nature of her decision. Yet those who observed the couple closely could see the depth of understanding, the ease of companionship, and the genuine affection that existed between them. Over time, admiration replaced skepticism, and their relationship became an example of how love, built on trust and shared values, could flourish even in unconventional circumstances. As months passed, they explored new experiences together, traveling to nearby towns, participating in community events, and engaging in projects that reflected their shared interests. Each adventure, no matter how small, became a means to strengthen their bond and create memories that were uniquely theirs. She discovered joy in the unplanned, the spontaneous moments that life offered, and came to appreciate the unpredictability that had led her to this unexpected chapter of her life. Through it all, she never forgot the journey that had brought her here. The heartbreak, the solitude, the chance meetings, and the growing trust she had developed with him were all integral to the person she had become. She understood that happiness was not guaranteed or effortless. It required courage, openness, and the willingness to embrace uncertainty. Her choice to marry him, made impulsively yet thoughtfully, had been a leap of faith that ultimately rewarded her with a partner who embodied the values, kindness, and integrity she had long sought. As they settled into the quiet rhythm of their life together, she realized that love did not need to be dramatic or conventional to be real. It could be found in shared moments of laughter, in acts of kindness, in the steady presence of someone who respected and valued her for who she truly was. The future remained uncertain, as it always does, but for the first time in a long while she felt confident and at peace. She had chosen her own path, one guided by intuition, trust, and the quiet strength of a man whose love was as real as it was unexpected. Life had settled into a quiet rhythm for her and him, one filled with simple routines, small joys, and moments of shared laughter. Each day brought its own challenges, from mundane household tasks to navigating the expectations of their families and community. Yet through it all, their connection deepened, rooted in mutual respect, understanding, and an unspoken promise to be there for each other. She felt a sense of contentment she had never known, a calm certainty that despite the past heartbreak, she had found a companion who truly valued and understood her. But as weeks passed, There were subtle hints that her husband was not entirely the man she thought she knew. He continued to move through life with humility and simplicity, but there were occasional glimpses of a side he rarely revealed. Sometimes, he would speak of encounters or experiences with a familiarity that suggested far more than simple travel or ordinary work. Other times, he would answer questions with careful vagueness, as though guarding details that were too personal or significant to share casually. She noticed but did not press, trusting that he would reveal himself in his own time. It was during a quiet afternoon, while they were walking through a market filled with colorful stalls and the scent of fresh food, that the first undeniable clue appeared. A man dressed in an expensive suit and carrying an air of authority approached him and greeted him with deference. She watched from a distance, curiosity and unease intertwining as she observed the exchange. The man spoke in hushed tones, but she could see the respect in his posture and the subtle nods of acknowledgement from others nearby. Something about the interaction hinted at wealth, influence, and a hidden life that she had never imagined. Later that evening, as they sat together at home, she finally asked the question that had been forming in her mind. She approached it gently, careful not to confront him with accusations, but driven by a desire to understand the mystery she had sensed. He listened, his expression calm and unreadable. Then slowly he began to reveal pieces of his life, the parts he had kept private not out of secrecy but out of a desire to be known for who he was, rather than what he possessed. He told her about his work, the responsibilities he carried, and the resources he managed. He explained that he had chosen a life of simplicity, engaging with the world without flaunting his wealth or status. He preferred to interact with people on an equal footing, valuing character and kindness above material measures. As he spoke, she realized that his humility was not born of necessity but of principle, a conscious choice to live authentically and with integrity. The revelation was shocking, yet it did not diminish her feelings for him. Instead, it added a new dimension to the admiration and trust she had already developed. She saw not only a kind and compassionate man, but also someone of remarkable capability and influence, who had deliberately chosen to let character and connection define his life rather than wealth or power. The realization was both humbling and inspiring, deepening her respect and love for him. In the days that followed, they began to navigate this new understanding together. She learned more about the responsibilities he had, the decisions he faced, and the careful thought he put into managing his affairs. Despite the magnitude of his influence, he remained grounded, approachable, and focused on the well-being of those around him. She found herself marveling at his balance, how he could hold such responsibility while maintaining the simplicity and authenticity that had first drawn her to him. Their conversations took on new depth, exploring not only personal experiences but also the ways in which his hidden wealth and influence could be used to make meaningful change. He shared stories of charitable work, community projects, and initiatives designed to improve the lives of those less fortunate. She listened, inspired by the quiet but impactful ways he contributed to the world, and began to see the potential for their shared life to extend beyond their own happiness, to positively influence others. As she adjusted to this new perspective, she also faced her own internal struggles. She had married him for who he was, not for what he had, and she needed to reconcile the image she had held of a humble man with the reality of a man of great means. It required reflection, patience, and a willingness to separate character from circumstance. She realized that her feelings had always been rooted in his kindness, integrity, and the comfort he provided, and these qualities were unchanged despite the revelation of his wealth. Their life together continued, enriched by this new understanding. She began to participate in projects and initiatives that he had quietly supported, discovering a sense of purpose and fulfillment in contributing to causes that mattered. Their shared values became the foundation of a life that was not only loving, but meaningful, a partnership built on trust, mutual respect, and a commitment to making a difference. The community, upon learning of his true status, reacted with surprise, curiosity, and admiration. Many were intrigued by the choice of a young woman who had seemingly married a modest man only to discover his true wealth later. Yet those who truly knew the couple recognized that their bond was not based on material advantage but on genuine affection, shared values, and mutual respect. The revelation of wealth added complexity to their story but did not define it. She also reflected on her own growth throughout this journey. From the heartbreak of a canceled engagement to the chance encounter that led to friendship, and finally to marriage and shared life, she had learned resilience, trust, and the value of authenticity. She realized that love could be unexpected, transformative, and profoundly meaningful when rooted in character rather than circumstance. Her experiences had shaped her into someone capable of embracing complexity, finding joy in simplicity, and appreciating the richness of life beyond material measures. Together, they continued to explore the world with curiosity and compassion. They traveled to nearby towns, engaged in community work, and supported local initiatives, always mindful of the impact they could have on those around them. She discovered a sense of fulfillment that extended beyond personal happiness, recognizing the profound satisfaction of contributing to the greater good alongside someone she loved and respected deeply. Their home, once modest and quiet, became a place of warmth, laughter, and reflection. Friends and family gathered, not out of obligation but out of genuine affection and admiration for the couple's partnership. The rhythm of daily life was enriched by shared experiences, thoughtful conversations, and the quiet understanding that their bond was built on principles far deeper than appearances or material wealth. Over time, she noticed the subtle ways in which their life together continued to teach her about patience, empathy, and resilience. Every challenge they faced, whether personal or external, was approached collaboratively with mutual respect and understanding. She learned to navigate complexities with grace, finding strength in the stability of their partnership and the unwavering support he provided. Each day reinforced the understanding that love, grounded in trust and shared values, could withstand surprises, challenges, and unforeseen revelations. Through it all, she maintained a sense of humility and gratitude for the journey that had led her to this point. The heartbreak of her past, the solitude she had endured, and the chance encounters that brought her husband into her life were all integral to the story of who she had become. She recognized that happiness and fulfillment were not destinations but processes, shaped by choices, experiences, and the people with whom one shared life's journey. The revelation of her husband's hidden wealth did not change the essence of their relationship. It deepened her understanding, expanded her perspective, and added opportunities for meaningful engagement with the world. She came to appreciate the complexity of human life, the unpredictable paths that lead to connection, and the profound impact of shared values and integrity. Her admiration for him grew, not because of the wealth or influence he possessed, but because of the humility, kindness, and thoughtfulness that guided his every action. As months turned into years, their partnership strengthened, rooted in mutual respect, love, and the shared experience of navigating life's challenges together. She continued to grow alongside him, discovering her own capacity for resilience, empathy, and purposeful action. Their life became a testament to the power of authenticity, kindness, and the unexpected paths through which love and fulfillment can emerge. The world outside continued in its usual rhythm, but within their shared life, a quiet, profound happiness blossomed, resilient and enduring, built on a foundation of trust, understanding, and the recognition of true character. Life had grown rich and full for her in ways she had never imagined. The days, once heavy with sadness and uncertainty, were now filled with purpose, love, and the quiet satisfaction of companionship. The journey from heartbreak to unexpected joy had not been simple or immediate, but it had been transformative. Each moment with him revealed not only his character but also the strength, resilience, and capacity for love within herself. The revelation of his wealth and influence had initially surprised her, yet it never changed the foundation of her feelings. She had married him for the man he was, not for the life he could provide. The humility and authenticity that defined him were untouched by his resources, and it was these qualities that had always drawn her to him. As the days passed, she found that knowing more about his life only deepened her respect and admiration, revealing a man who combined generosity, intelligence, and compassion in ways that inspired her to grow alongside him. Together, they began to explore opportunities to use his resources for meaningful impact. They initiated community projects, supported local businesses, and contributed to charitable endeavors. She discovered a profound sense of fulfillment in these activities, realizing that love could extend beyond personal happiness to encompass acts that touched the lives of others. Each small success reinforced their bond, reminding them that shared values and purpose could strengthen the foundation of any relationship. Her family had gradually come to understand and accept the path she had chosen. Initially surprised by her choice to marry a man who seemed modest and ordinary, they soon recognized the depth of their connection and the authenticity of their love. They saw how he had nurtured her, respected her independence, and encouraged her growth. Over time, admiration replaced skepticism, and family gatherings became occasions of warmth, laughter, and shared appreciation for the couple's partnership. As their life together unfolded, she continued to learn about the nuances of his world, not just the material aspects but also the philosophy that guided his decisions. He valued character, kindness, and responsibility above all else, and these principles influenced every choice he made. She admired the way he balanced discretion with generosity, humility with influence, and simplicity with impact. It was a lesson in living with integrity, a quality that shaped both his actions and the environment they created together. They faced ordinary challenges alongside extraordinary opportunities. From managing household responsibilities to making decisions about investments and community projects, each situation tested their collaboration, communication, and understanding. Yet every challenge strengthened their relationship, teaching patience, compromise, and mutual respect. They discovered that love was not only about shared joy, but also about facing difficulties together with empathy and trust. Her own growth was evident in small yet meaningful ways. She approached life with greater confidence, handled conflicts with composure, and discovered the joy of contributing to causes larger than herself. The journey that had begun with heartbreak had led her to a place where she could fully embrace her potential, not just as a partner, but as an individual capable of impacting the world positively. She found strength in resilience, wisdom in reflection, and fulfillment in purpose. Their relationship continued to deepen through shared experiences, quiet moments, and thoughtful communication. Simple routines such as morning walks, evening conversations, and collaborative projects became the pillars of their daily life. These routines were not monotonous but rather infused with significance, reflecting their commitment to one another and the life they were building. Every day offered new opportunities to learn, grow, and appreciate the complexities of life shared with someone whose values aligned with their own. One of the most profound aspects of their journey was the mutual understanding that wealth and influence were not the primary measures of a meaningful life. The true richness lay in character, connection, and the ability to make a positive difference. She observed how he treated everyone, regardless of status, with respect and dignity, reinforcing the lessons she had absorbed throughout their time together. These values shaped their home, their interactions with the community, and the legacy they were beginning to create. Their marriage became a model of partnership built on authenticity and shared purpose. Friends and acquaintances admired the balance they had achieved, noting how they navigated life's complexities with grace and unity. The community recognized not only the resources they could offer, but also the thoughtfulness, care, and integrity that guided their actions. Their influence extended beyond material wealth to the example they set, inspiring others to value character, empathy, and collaboration. She continued to reflect on the journey that had brought her to this point. The heartbreak of a canceled engagement, the months of solitude, the chance meeting with a man whose presence became a lifeline, all of it had shaped the person she had become. Each step, though fraught with uncertainty, had taught lessons in resilience, trust, and the unexpected ways life can lead to fulfillment. She understood that happiness was not guaranteed but cultivated through courage, openness, and thoughtful choice. As they moved forward, they also prepared for the future with intention and care. They considered family, personal growth, and contributions to the community in their planning, always mindful of maintaining the values that defined their relationship. She embraced the responsibilities and opportunities that came with partnership, recognizing that love was intertwined with shared vision, empathy, and the willingness to face challenges together. The quiet moments of their life together became treasured rituals. Sitting together in the early morning light, walking through markets, discussing books, or simply sharing laughter over small meals, these moments formed the threads that wove the fabric of their shared existence. Each experience, whether ordinary or extraordinary, reinforced the understanding that love, grounded in respect and integrity, could endure and flourish despite past heartbreak and unexpected revelations. She marveled at the transformation in her own perspective. The pain that had once consumed her mind and heart had been tempered by experiences that taught resilience, patience, and the value of authentic connection. She realized that love, when founded on trust and shared principles, could not only heal wounds but also inspire personal growth and purposeful action. The life she had once imagined, meticulously planned and predictable, was now replaced by a rich, dynamic reality she had never anticipated but deeply cherished. As months turned into years, their bond strengthened, reflecting a partnership that was adaptable, supportive, and deeply connected. They faced challenges and celebrated successes together, always prioritizing understanding, respect, and empathy. Their shared life became a testament to the power of love grounded in character, highlighting that true happiness often arises from authenticity, connection, and the courage to embrace the unexpected. The community continued to observe their journey with admiration, noting how their partnership exemplified values often overlooked in pursuit of wealth or status. They became involved in initiatives that extended their influence beyond themselves, contributing to education, healthcare, and social development projects. These efforts were not for recognition, but reflected their commitment to making a meaningful difference, further reinforcing the depth and sincerity of their bond. Through it all, she remained grounded, mindful of the lessons learned from her past and appreciative of the journey that led her to this point. The heartbreak, the solitude, and the chance encounter with a man whose kindness had opened her heart were all integral to her story. She understood that life's richness came not from predictability or material gain, but from love, integrity, and the meaningful connections forged along the way.